Hey guys, welcome back to the continuation of James Hudson joining the X-Men. Now this is part of an ongoing series, so if you're just starting here, go in the description, hit the playlist, and start from the beginning. Because in this video, we're going to talk about the birth of Utopia, it's going to jump back to some stuff on Mothervine, then it's going to end with World War X, which won't make any sense unless you see the other ones. So scroll down, hit that, do that, come back, and let go. Alright, so in the last video, Nick Fury separated off from the team to head off and do some business, and that's under the active president of the United States being Captain America. And it makes sense that he's the president because the United States has now become the divided states of America. And he's really the one person around that really embodies the whole nation coming back together. So jumping back to Camp 14 right at the morning after the battle with the Sentinels, Iceman noticed something bite him on the neck, but then Black Box was like, dude, there's no mosquitoes in the desert. And it was a Sentinel mini drone that bit him. And that little drone was just a precursor to every single Sentinel that was left coming after them, including Stryker himself. And you'll notice that with Stryker's consciousness and control of these Nimrods, it's like you'll notice sometimes that they have a calculated advantage being machines, but more than anything else, you notice they're flawed because they're led by Stryker, and he's more so attacking off of the motion. Because as far as he's concerned, he just wants to kill Kitty Pryde out of revenge and then kill everybody else just because they're mutants. And Kitty Pryde has mentioned before that she is willing to die for this cause, but even more than that, she is willing to live for it, meaning that everybody else's survival is more important than her dying as a martyr. So in an attempt to end Stryker for good, she has Warpath throw her up on top of Stryker's shoulder. And when she gets up there, she finally defeats Stryker by destroying the black box that holds his consciousness. And she achieves this by using adamantium bullets, courtesy of Nick Fury. So after Stryker is taken out of the picture, Captain America comes down to congratulate Kitty publicly and also have a conversation with her privately about the terms and the future for mutants in the North American region. And he tells Kitty he wants to give her and the rest of the mutants a choice. And that choice is for each and every mutant to have the opportunity to take the Seer virus, which will destroy their mutant gene and make them normal. But if they decide not to take it, Captain America has designated a region of land to where all the mutants who don't want to take it can go and live safely. Now for Kitty herself, it's a no-brainer because she's not going to take it. But she has to make a decision as a leader for what's good for the rest of her people. And she decides to let them choose for themselves, and a lot of people choose to take the cure. And Husk is in this long line, and Iceman's more so trying to talk her out of it, and he has a huge crush on her, so of course he's going to hang out wherever she's at. But then she randomly asks him to go get her a drink, and she does that because she has a bomb strapped to her chest, and she wants to keep him safe out of the blast radius. And the explosion is huge, you can see it from like miles away. And out of the dozens of casualties that happen, Husk is still alive. And it's at that moment that we learn that she didn't escape from the camp, but she was planted for this attack. And it was all planned by William Stryker. Like even after his death, he still has plans going in motion. And this wasn't something that Husk wanted to do. She was brainwashed while she was in the camp. So when she came out and it was at that particular time, she was just triggered and she did what she did. Kind of like Bucky Barnes when you say the magic words like 17, homecoming. But I'm not going to do the whole thing for one of y'all go crazy and blame it on me. But for the remaining mutants, it's like 20 of them, including Darth Vader, they're in the back seat. But when they finally get to the destination, man, this place is desolate. And dude that gets Kitty to sign a deed to it tells her that, hey, we can't even get anything to survive out here, like not even mountain goats. If the dehydration doesn't kill them, they definitely die from the alkali in the soil. And when she's like, give it here, I'll sign, look at James's face. And this is one of the main times that the group starts to second guess Kitty and her decision making, and especially Nomi. I think she's like 14 years old, somewhere around there, but she felt like she would be a better leader than Kitty would be. And it's times like this when Kitty makes these questionable decisions to where it's like, well, of course I'd be a better leader than you would. And as for James, in spite of Kitty's questionable decision at this moment, he's still being optimistic. He's saying, hey, we can make this work. But on the flip side, Nomi's being very pessimistic, and she's saying, well, you had the attention of Captain America, the president, and this is the best you can do. And Warpath puts her in her place, letting her know that the vote was fair and square. And he understands that she's frustrated that she wasn't selected to be the leader, but there's more politics to it. Because it's the actions that you take that make you popular with the people, and that popularity is power. And that power got her those votes. But as Zero checks out the ground, he comes to the conclusion that the ground cannot be used for agriculture, but the contaminations in the soil can be separated. And after that, all it would need is moisture. So Storm's like, no problem, I can handle that. And they make a collective effort in making the place livable. Because with all their powers combined, they have the possibility of making this place a true utopia. And I swear I've seen something like this before somewhere. But anyway, but while you got the rain coming down, you know James gotta have another Drake moment. But shortly after that, the whole team continues that good luck streak. Because from here, Iron Man starts to show some help, he sends them supplies, and he really gives them all the tools they need to have a fighting chance at actually building something out there. But he did more than just send supplies, he actually showed up himself and offered to help strengthen their security around the perimeter. Because every now and then, they'd have these mysterious unmarked soldiers that would just pop up or they'd have to take down from an aircraft flying through. And this stirred some tension between Kitty and James, because at one point when they were trying to figure out what to do with these guys, James wanted to just cut them up, because the way he sees it, fighting's what got them there, and fighting was going to keep them alive. But Kitty feels like they've all fought enough and they need to use more diplomacy and smarter tactics overall to expand where they're at, instead of just bashing in the head of anybody they just don't agree with. And even after that conflict, James still stuck around and he still did his routine perimeter checks, and then will report back, letting Kitty know what's on the outside of the reservation area. And she let him know too that she appreciates his consistency, that regardless of what decision she makes, she noticed that he's always there supporting her or backing her up in her decision. And it's true that he's always been there, but he's also honest when he needs to be. And he lets Kitty know that, hey, straight up, this was a bad deal that we got. And he brings up a few pointers that Nomi had mentioned earlier, and saying that, hey, she was right about, this being a bad deal. And she was right about other little things about us being able to have weapons. And Kitty let James know, we do have a gun and Nomi has it. And he's like, what? Nomi has it? Like, as much as he hates you, you're going to let her hold a gun? Okay. But it's at this point in time when you start to see James and Kitty solidify this ongoing chemistry into an actual relationship. And we've seen signs of an interest on both ends, but it's not until everything calms down till you really see them actually come together. And you know everybody's not going to be cool with that. And she's woken up with a gun to her head. And she knows that it's Nomi, because Nomi's the only person who has a gun in Utopia. And Kitty's quite puzzled too, because Nomi knows that she pulls the trigger that it's going to pass right through Kitty. But once Nomi knows she's got Kitty's attention, she pulls the gun over to the right. And that's when we see that James is laying right next to Kitty. And this scares the mess out of Kitty. She knows he has a healing factor, but she doesn't know to what extent that he'll be able to recover. So she screams no, and it wakes up James. And she really just takes that moment to hold him, because she's like right on that breaking point. But at this point, with the exception of Nomi messing with Kitty all the time, they've begun to make huge strides as far as just building their own village, their own community, their own utopia. But in order to really make it work, they got to get this agriculture popping. Because if they can experiment and find a way to grow food in this land that belongs to them, then they won't be dependent on other people like the US or other countries. And when they found that breakthrough, they showed it to Tony, and it's actually like a mutant seed that can grow in any condition. But while this is going on, I'll skip over to James Hudson, who's left with Black Box, and they went back to Miami to pick up the device that Logan had left a message for James on. Now, being that this instance happens in an issue of Ultimate's Wolverine, and the Utopia panels we're just looking at took place in Ultimate's X-Men, I couldn't find anything saying that this was the specific time that James left with Black Box, but it made the most sense event-wise, and also because James cut his hair in this panel. And I assume he did that so he wouldn't be recognized traveling out there. But he takes Black Box back to the same boathouse where he first had that conversation with Kitty about Wolverine being his biological father. But while they're standing in there, he hears his parents talking about him, and they just want to know that he's all right. They feel like he'll never come back, but they would love to hear from him. And James wants to talk to his parents, but he doesn't want to put them in that position where he feels like any danger could come to them. Because on the East Coast, it's still the United States, and it's illegal there for people to come in contact with mutants. But on that holographic device, there's different locations like fertility clinics. And as they head to the first one, Wildchild and his crew are just staking it out from the outside. But at this point, James and Black Box don't really know what they're going to find there. They're just following the addresses that are in that device and going to check them out one by one. And with Blackchild being able to communicate telepathically with any type of technology is why he brought him along. And what they ended up finding out that this is one of the locations that was used to produce Mothervine. And after seeing this place, they came to the assumption that the other addresses on the device were places where they either researched or produced Mothervine as well. And the place looked abandoned, like whoever was working there just had to dip out real quick all of a sudden. But while they're checking that out, Wildchild comes in with his crew looking like something out of Ninja Turtles. Whole bunch of Casey Jones looking mugs. But Wildchild's purpose here is kind of confusing to me, because he's got a contract to stake out the place, but also says he got a contract to clean out the place. It's like, which one you doing? But either way, part of that contract is taking out anybody who goes in that place since it's been shut down, so they don't stumble across the Mothervine technology, mainly to protect those secrets so nobody else get their hands on it. And initially when he attacks James Hudson, he doesn't know who he is until he sees his claws. And Black Box grabs the holographic device to do one of the sickest moves you'll ever see though. So first he activates it to put a bunch of Wolverines saying the same message all over the place to kind of throw everybody off. And that works initially because James uses that to get the jump on Wildchild. But at the same time, it also solidified his assumption that this is Wolverine's son. James jumped through the hologram, chopped off about 4 fingers. But Black Box isn't done yet because he moves all the holograms in the exact same place that all the henchmen and henchwomen are standing, and he cranks up the temperature, frying off their skin. And everybody's eyes is wide open like, what? Because they ain't got no eyelids no more. But right after that happened, the speedster comes through and takes out Wildchild. And it's none other than James's half-brother, Quicksilver. And Quicksilver's kind of been pulling strings in the background of this whole event and this whole series, because with all the events going around, mutants are dropping off the face of the earth left and right, mainly because there's so many people taking this quote-unquote cure so they can be normal. And so he's trying to fix that. So his plan is to take this mother vine and get it out to as many women as possible, because any woman who takes mother vine, it guarantees the fact that she'll have a child that is a mutant. And I talk more about that in my James Hudson video. I'll leave a link for that. But Quicksilver's plan here is to repopulate the mutant race, because right now mutants are like in the double digits for real. And he also blames himself for Stryker taking out a lot of the mutants after he got access to all the Sentinels, because at that time Quicksilver was in the White House trying to gain access and control to the Sentinels. And ever since his father's death, Magneto, Quicksilver's taken his place as far as trying to keep mutants alive with extreme prejudice, like no matter what it takes, no matter how many lives is lost. But after he captured James in Black Box, James gets out of the cell and hides under the floor crates. And it gives Pietro the worst of surprise, man. Worse. And he steps on Jimmy's claw running full speed. And he thought James would be standing out in the hallway, but Black Box actually just put a looping image telepathically to the security feed that looked like James was out in the hallway and opening the cell walking through the front door. So now, as far as Quicksilver getting stabbed in the foot, I want to talk a little bit about his healing factor, because he does have one, but it's not anything like Wolverine's or anything like James Hudson. It's more like your speedster healing factor. And I wouldn't go as far as compare it to the Flash, because I do believe the Flash would heal faster because he is a faster speedster, but it's more like a condition to where he can recover from anything that you will recover from normally, just at a faster rate, if that makes any sense. Unlike James, who will recover from something that will probably kill you, Pietro will only be able to recover from wounds that are not fatal. And we'll see a prime example of that in a little bit, because earlier when Pietro was talking to James, saying how he wanted him to join his side, to join the cause, but he doesn't feel like he can because he doesn't think James would be able to make this sacrifice like Pietro's willing to make, or like his father Magneto made. That was really just him stalling, because as Pietro runs fast enough here to peel the skin off of James, he has no intention of brotherly bonding with him or anything like that, because their fathers practically killed each other. But this right here, as he's running with James, makes me wonder about some other things that James can do as well, because he brings his organic metal over his teeth, making them razor sharp as he bites Pietro on the shoulder. And it shocks the mess out of Pietro, because the look on his face is like, who the hell just bit me? But it really makes me think, because this is the first time we've seen James pull his organic metal over his bones, or over his teeth for this matter, in a shape that wasn't just covering his natural form. So it makes me wonder, like, where else can he take this, the organic metal, and what kind of constructs can he make out of it within himself? Will he be able to cover his skin like Colossus? Because it's both the organic metal. And if he does, I figure it'll look something like Mimic here, but I think that's just one thing we gotta wait and see. But when James tells him that injecting everybody with Mother Vine is like a terroristic act, it really gets heated between these two. Because like I said, aside from the issue that is at hand, these two will always have bad blood no matter what, because at the end of the day, they're still their father's sons. But as they're fighting here, bullets just start to rain down from up above. And it's none other than their loving mother, Magda. And she did this only to stop the fight, because she knew that they would kill each other just like their fathers. And she's a good shot, so she makes sure that Pietro's wounds are non-lethal, and also that he gets medical attention. And James, only after seeing her briefly, goes back to Utopia with Black Box. And Black Box goes to James' dorm room to let him know that he still has all that information in his head. And he's just telling him, like, hey, if you ever want to know more information about your mother or your father, you know, just let me know and I'll tell you. But as far as James is concerned, his mother and his father live in a trailer in Florida. And they did their best to raise him to be who they knew he would become one day, and that's the Wolverine. And we see him pull his dad's old costume out of the bag, and you would think like from this point forward he would wear it, but he doesn't. But as for the studies they were doing at the greenhouse in Utopia, they made the mutant seed work. And by figuring this out, it also helped other problems they had, like Storm, for instance. She couldn't create the clouds and the rain like she really needed to, because when the land was only desert, the air was too dry and there wasn't enough moisture for her to create rain and give drinking water for everybody. And it turned this plateau into like a mini jungle of sorts. Like there was even animals running around through the woods there. How they got there, I don't know. They probably drop ship. But now that Utopia is actually a livable place with water and plants, everybody works together and rebuilds the village. And the nation's capital can't stand this, because the prosperity of the mutants is destroying the economy of what's left of the United States. So Congress orders for the United States to seize back that land, and it gets enough votes to where it can't be vetoed by the president. And Jean Grey, who was at Utopia at the time, is using all of this to play in her favor, because as the village of Utopia burns to the ground, she just dips out. And it's here that we find out that this vulture looking dude that's been creeping around the place actually works for her, but she doesn't want the mutants killed, so she orders for him to drop an EMP on the military, bringing their attack to a halt. But her strategy to spin off this is more of a political approach, because she uses the media, because the media has the world looking at the mutants of Utopia like extremists and like terrorists of sorts. But she opens up tea into the rest of the world, saying that, hey, this is a place where mutants respect people, mutants care, and over here we're all about peace. And James takes it upon himself to check it out and to talk to Jean. Because keep in mind, aside from Kitty, Jean is one of the few people that James trusts to lead and protect mutants. Because in the previous video, when she was in hiding, had the black hair, that's all she was trying to do was round up mutants and get them together. So he trusts her to an extent because of that. But in their conversation, Jean is bashing Kitty, saying she's going about this all wrong, pretty much telling him that she needs to be removed from power. And when James doesn't agree to it, she has him locked up as a prisoner in 10. And like the relationship between James and Kitty is real up and down, back and forth. And even though they're not on the best terms in this particular period in time, he's not going to agree to kill her. So she has him locked up in like this maximum security vault, voice recognition and all that, like the whole 9. And she doesn't have him handcuffed because she has his parietal cortex like in a grip to where he can't even move his limbs, or at least his legs, so he can't get up. And she tells James about the announcement that she made on the news and that Kitty's no longer the leader of Utopia, that she stepped down and Colossus is taking her place. And as for her plans for James, she's just going to leave the door open, she's going to allow him to get out, and it's going to be him versus everybody in 10 like at one time. So she makes sure she gets a good distance from the door, and then she just snaps her finger, releasing him from paralysis, and he just leaps out the door. But his killing spree is a short one, because even though Jean meant for this to be a death sentence for him, he didn't die. And so since they couldn't kill him, she takes it on herself to pretty much just fry his brain. But before she can do that, Kitty comes to the rescue. And Kitty really wasn't far. Like this whole thing of her stepping down from power was just smoke and mirrors for her to get in close. Because she sees 10 with the intent of recreating Utopia. She tried to take away Utopia's discovery of the sentient seed, and she just sent James to a mindless rampage throughout 10 to make him look like a terrorist. But I like that Kitty does one thing here that she barely does a lot, because you usually see her phase through things, but she can also make herself super dense the same way she can make herself intangible like air. And she overpowers 10, giving it back to its original owners who were like ancient gods of China or something like that. And after this victory, James goes back with Kitty to Utopia. And shortly after that, you start to see the progress of what they've brought into Utopia spreading around it as the world starts to expand closer to Utopia. And shortly after that, Kitty also mentions that she wants to bring the X-Men back together. And that'll do it for this video, because immediately after this, it's going to take us into Cataclysm. And that's going to take us into the Incursion, which shows us James Hudson on Battle World. And then we see how James got united with the X-Men Blue Team. But before I dig into that some more, I want to give a shout out to our newest Patreon, Everett Jenkins. Everett is our first silver level Patreon, which helps the page out in a big way. Now I got links below and also got a link up top that'll take you to my Patreon page for anybody that wants to help out. And even if you can't do 20 a month like Everett, there's other categories like $1 or $5. $5 unlocks the different benefits, but every contribution counts and every Patreon gets a shout out. So if yours is a lower amount, don't feel bad. I won't say how much it is. I'll just post your name at the end of the video just to show my appreciation. But yeah guys, hit that thumbs up if you enjoyed the video, and hit me up in the comments as well too. I want to know, what are your thoughts on James Hudson's journey so far, and how do you feel about the upcoming coverage for Cataclysm? Because I know it's quite a few people who have covered that event before, but nobody's really covered it from James Hudson's point of view. And that's really the purpose of this whole playlist. And that's really something that I enjoy doing with this channel, is talking about these events from a different perspective. Because Miles Morales wasn't the only person who was there. Other people experienced this as well. But that'll do it for this one, guys. Smash that like button, hit me up in the comments, and we'll do it again next time. Alright, later.